Dear Elliot, right now you are 2 months from being born. We just found out that you have trisomy 18, also called Edwards syndrome. Doctors tell us that you won't likely make it to birth. Your mom and I are praying against that. We're praying for healing. We are praying for nothing less than a miracle. You're our first child, and the day of your birth couldn't come sooner. Dear Elliot, you were born today weighing in at 6 pounds. You are already a miracle to us. Your mom is doing well, and it looks like we'll be hanging out here at the hospital a little longer. Dear Elliot, today you turned 11 days old. We are so proud of you. Today we celebrated your 11th birthday. In fact, we do that every day at 4:59, the time you were born. Dear Elliot, we've been home for a week now, so that's why you don't see your nurses anymore. It's great to have you home. Today I think we'll pack up everything and take our first venture out for coffee. Dear Elliot, I don't know if you've noticed, but you're connected to some tubes. The doctors say we have to keep these in so you can get oxygen to breathe. You are also fed through a feeding tube. We feed you every 3 hours and it takes an hour and a half to do it. We've loved learning how to best take care of you. We love it. Lots of people email, call, and send cards on your behalf. You're well loved. It's 11 at night right now and my feeding shift has just begun. Mom is asleep and the best part of my day has begun. My shift ends around 4:45 a.m. when your mom takes over. She cherishes her mornings with her boy. Today you turn 1 month old. I didn't know if I'd ever get to say that. To top off the day, 20 friends showed up at the door for a true surprise birthday party for you. They sang, brought balloons, and a birthday cake. It was beautiful chaos. At 2 a.m. this morning, your feeding tube came out. We had been warned this may happen eventually. We quickly realized we did not have a stethoscope, which was necessary to replace the tube. Since our neighbor was a nurse, I went ahead and knocked on their door at 2:30 a.m. They found their stethoscope and your mom went to it. After much wrestling, praying, and your tears, the tube was down, and you were able to feed. Just so you know, your mom is my hero. Dear Elliot, you now weigh 7 pounds 3 ounces. You're growing and your food has been bumped up because of your good appetite. You continue to find new ways to steal our hearts. Dear Elliot, today marks 2 months of your life. Your mom and I are so thankful we know you. We know your face, your noises. We know that bath time and massage are your favorite daily activity. You finally learned how to suck your thumb by yourself. Because of trisomy 18, you were born with clenched fists, and being able to do this is actually quite difficult. Way to go, son. Dear Elliot, we celebrate your birthday every day with a picture. Lately, we've tried to get a bit more creative. Dear Elliot, I realize you can get frustrated with your tubes and your frequent congestion. Please know that your mom and I are doing everything we can to make you comfortable. Dear Elliot, well, you tipped the scales today at 8 pounds 14 ounces. Quite an accomplishment. You also have managed to grow a pretty decent mullet. Dear Elliot, we all got to go to a reunion at the hospital. I've never seen your mom more happy. The joy she felt getting to show off her son can't be described with words. In fact, she compared it to the way a mother would feel when her son becomes president or wins a Heisman or develops a cure for cancer. The logic of medicine says you shouldn't be alive, but you are. You are such a fighter. Dear Elliot, you have now passed the 3-month mark. You also got your first cordless pictures taken today. No feeding tube, oxygen, or stickers. This was no small accomplishment, but we got it done. Have I told you lately that we are so proud of you? Dear Elliot, today you went to be with Jesus. An underdeveloped lung, a heart with a hole in it, and DNA that placed faulty information into each and every cell of your body could not stop God from revealing himself through a child who never uttered a word. Not a pulpit, not a slick presentation, not a best-selling book, but a 6-pound boy with trisomy 18. God found great pleasure to take a lowly thing in the eyes of the world and show truth. At your funeral, we released 99 balloons, each balloon representing a day of your life. How beautiful it was to watch, how quickly they were gone. And so today, we celebrate. Elliot, you are well, and although we miss you more than we can express, we're only separated from you by our time left on earth. See you soon, son, Mom and Dad.
We all know that when you go through something like we've just seen on that video, it can get pretty dark. We all know that it's not just for the 99 days, and it doesn't really seem to matter how we try to look for the good and the hope that's rising in us. And in a way, the light can seem to honestly disappear. There's a part of us when we go through something so big. I mean, it's incredible their response. But I can promise you that no matter how good the video makes them out to be, they're real, just like you and I. And it hurts to go through the dark. When you lose a child, but not just when you lose a child, when you lose a spouse, when you lose a parent, or maybe just when a relationship is so broken, when someone steps out on the marriage, when someone says, I can't take it anymore. When someone ends their own life, when everything seems to be going so well and we're surprised with the diagnosis. Whatever our plans might be, when they are turned completely upside down, however big and often however small, when everything gets turned around, we all know it's not just a dark day or 99 dark days. There are whole seasons that the darkness seems to surround us in such a powerful way that there can seem to be no light at all, no hope. Like there's no end, like there's no way out of this. But even in our darkest season, we can find light. Even in the darkness, there can be a flicker of hope. A light that if you'll look at it, it'll be almost too bright to look at it. You know what the lights are like when they first come on in the morning, or when you've been sitting in the dark and boom, the lights come on. You squint and you have to look away, but there is a light that if you can look toward it is better than 99 balloons rising. It's the light that can give you not wishful thinking, but real hope. You know, when we're in our darkest places, it's in our darkest seasons that we are pushed to become something that we would never strive to be. Think about it. At your worst, at the worst of the worst, it's only then that we are pushed to become something stronger than what we would ever want. Before a flower can ever bloom, that seed gets pushed into the mud, into the dirt, into the darkness, and covered over, right? And just when that poor seed thinks this is bad enough and I'm all alone down here in this black hole, somebody pours water on it and almost drowns the thing, right? And it's pushed down. It's all alone. But it's out of the darkness that a plant grows, that someday a bloom emerges. A pregnant mom will tell you, after 9 months, she's done. She's more than ready to give birth. She's so uncomfortable, so tired, and yet she knows that she has so much more to face. And she keeps going. Even though she knows that the pain is greatest just before the burst of new life and light. But without the dark places, without being pushed, without being planted, without getting through the pain, there would never be those new great discoveries, those new blooms, that new life. So welcome to part 1 of Finding Light in the Dark. Be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or to get all caught up, or hit rewind and say, did he really say that? Visit us at thepointchurch.ca. Go to our on-demand. But I want to just thank you. For those of you in Chatham and in Bathurst, if you're joining us online, a very special welcome. Thanks for our emerging online congregation who are joining us here at the Newcastle site. We want to bring this message of hope and light all over southeastern New Brunswick, or northeastern New Brunswick. And so we want to thank you so much for being with us today online. Thanks for subscribing to that YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. But today, if I could give you that long list of depressing things, we could just finish now and I'll walk out and cry all the way home, right? I don't need to remind you of all the bad things that have happened, let alone what could happen. Some of you were up all night thinking about those things already. The last thing you need is for me to remind you about them. But we all know on some level that if it's not us, it's someone close to us that goes through, every one of us, or those closest to us, they go through these dark, dark days. And sometimes those days turn into weeks and months and years, entire seasons. And there is this dark place that, if we're honest, we can end up there. But that shouldn't be the end. There was a minor prophet in the Old Testament. Minor, he never made it into the majors, right? He was a minor prophet, just one of those little tiny books that found himself in a dark place. It's a guy I hardly ever quote because I don't really like him. He doesn't make me feel good. This Old Testament prophet finds himself and his people in this dark, dark season that wasn't resolved in a few verses, or in a sit down with the Bible, or even in a sermon. It lasted longer than 99 days and longer than any balloon release. That there seemed to be that this wasn't all going to resolve itself. It was a dark time for him. And this prophet was unable to see or understand where God was. You've had those situations, haven't you? I certainly have. Where in the midst of all that was closing in around me, this prophet had the same thing. He saw very little to no hope. He saw that just the things he thought God would do, God was doing the exact opposite. The evil seemed to be closing in all around him. It was making no sense to him. And Habakkuk is the guy's name, Habakkuk, a minor prophet. Lived about 600 years before the birth of Jesus and was a very different prophet. Most prophets are the voice of God to the people. The prophet brings a message to the people. Habakkuk was just the opposite. He brought the voice of the people, the frustrations of the people, the hurt and the heartache of his people he brings to God because he didn't understand, and he certainly didn't like what God was doing. Listen to how Habakkuk starts us off. How long, O Lord, must I call for help? But you don't even listen. I pour out my heart to you. He starts right in here, and so strong, some of us would maybe be tempted to say, I don't even know if it's appropriate to speak to God that way. Oh, it's appropriate to be real with God. How long? How long am I going to have to keep coming to you about my kid or my marriage, about the legal situation, about the abuse? How long will it be? How long for this medical situation? How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you won't even listen? Or how long am I going to have to cry out to you? Violence! They're killing us! But you don't save. You're not saving anybody. Why do you make me look at this injustice? You can see the news. You see what's going on all around me. The prophet cries out to God on behalf of the people, on behalf of his frustration. And he says, why are you making me look at this injustice? Why do you tolerate all this wrongdoing, destruction, and violence? They're right in front of me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Everything seems to be wrong, bad, terrible. And I'm not afraid to tell you. He cries out to God. He says, therefore, because of all this that you're letting happen, the law is paralyzed. The law he's referring to here is God's own word. Your word is stuck. This isn't working. This can't be real. And justice, it never prevails. Here's how we say it. That's not fair. Right? That's just not fair. I put an extra $20 in the offering plate and things still went wrong. I attended for 4 weeks in a row and still this happened. And we look at it and we say, that's just wrong. That's not fair. That's not who the guy at the front makes God out to be. This doesn't seem to work. The wicked, they hem in the righteous. They're closing in all around us so that justice is perverted. God, I'm in a mess here. Why don't you do who I know you are? Why don't you do what I know that you can do? You've got the power to do things differently, and yet you don't heal. You don't remove the thorn in the Apostle Paul's flesh. 3 times he prayed, and still it's there. You seem to answer someone else's prayer, but if you're answering mine, it's no. No. We wonder why God is doing what he's doing, and how long must I cry for help? But then in verse 5, God responds. And he says, Habakkuk, hold on. Look at the nations and just watch and be utterly amazed. What you are about to see, here, for I am going to do something. I'm going to act. And I'm going to do something, not someday, but in your days, that you would not believe, even if you were told. I mean, this is so unbelievable. You wouldn't believe it even if I told you how good this is. God's got this upgrade for Habakkuk. I told you a few weeks ago that while I was traveling, I was delayed, and then my flight was canceled, and everything that could go wrong seemed to be going wrong with my flights. And I'm not little, and I also fly as cheap as I possibly can, sometimes even in the middle seat. And if I happen to get some peanuts in the middle seat, I mean, I'm folded in there, and I'm trying to eat, and trying to get this in, and I hate to, hit anybody, but, you try to open those little things, and they go all over the place, and you're so uncomfortable, and you're so miserable, and I just think after that kind of a flight, why me? I was on church business. This is awful, and then I was upgraded. After delay and cancel, I got to fly first class on a 4.5-hour flight. It wasn't just premium economy. It was first class. It was on a plane that had those pods. I mean, it doesn't just have chairs that you could use your elbows in. I mean, there was nobody beside me. It was a pod that went flat like a bed, and once it got flat, it started to vibrate. And I mean, it just felt so stinking good. It was amazing. And I thought, there, finally, the upgrade. After all of my suffering, after all of the wrongdoing that has gone against me, after my service to the living God, finally, I'm being upgraded. And in first class, they treat you right. I mean, you get on the plane, and as you're adjusting your seat, they look at you, and they bring you a bottle of water, and they ask you if you want anything else, and they bring you juice, they bring you whatever you want. They serve you with meals. They give you a warm, moist face cloth to wipe your brow and to wipe all the common folk off you. It's just incredible. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And in coach, you're lucky to get nuts. In first class, I mean, they deliver your little package of nuts in a white dish, and you go to reach into it and you realize, they have just warmed my nuts. Like, this is incredible. This is the most amazing thing, that there is nothing that they will not do. And there it is. On the day of the annual meeting. Let me recover from that. I wish that when things were really bad, that it meant we were about to get a big old upgrade. I wish that I could look at Habakkuk and finish the sermon here. But Habakkuk is not about to get an upgrade. In fact, the situation is not about to be resolved. This sermon, in fact, is probably not going to be totally resolved. Here's what's going to happen is I'm going to go as far as I can, and then we're going to run out of time. And I'm going to leave you hanging at a spot that is just going to be wrong. You got to come back next week and make sure you hear the rest. But let me tell you what happens to Habakkuk here. He goes ahead and God says, I'm going to do something unbelievable, but not in the good kind of way. Oh, Habakkuk, my prophet, I'm raising up your enemy, the Babylonians. These ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings that are not their own. These are awful people. They're feared and they're dreaded. That they are a law unto themselves, God says to Habakkuk. And they promote their own honor. They're the opposite of everything you know me to be and everything I would want you to be. And yet, when they sweep past like the wind and go on, no one able to stop them, these guilty people whose own strength is their God. I mean, this is, and it goes on verse after verse of how awful it's about to get. I am sure that Habakkuk thought, oh, baby, not only didn't I get an upgrade, I wish I didn't know what was coming my way. I mean, this is awful. Listen to me. In case no one ever told you this before, God makes no sense sometimes. His ways are not our ways. He doesn't always do what we want him to do. He's not our great genie in the sky. He doesn't always do what we ask him to do, what we expect him to do. In fact, what's worse is sometimes he does not just says no to our requests, he seems to do the exact opposite, right? Habakkuk is just as frustrated with God as you and I. But he does something different. He does something that you and I think, sometimes miss. He embraces and he wrestles with God all at the same time. He says, Lord, are you not the everlasting God? I mean, you are my God. You are my Holy One. You will never die. See how even after this bad news, he says, I embrace you. I believe for what I cannot see. I believe for what I am not feeling. You, Lord, have appointed them, my enemies, to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. You see the embracing and the wrestling going on here? Oh, Lord, my God, embrace. What on earth? Wrestle. My rock, embrace. Have ordained them to punish? Wrestle. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. I embrace. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. I know these things to be true about you. It's why I pray the way I pray. It's why I trust the way I trust. I know that you should want to do this and you should want to fix this my way. I know that. But yet I wrestle. Why then do you tolerate these treacherous people? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those who are more righteous than themselves? This is not the way it should be. Where is the light? Where is the hope? See, when we're trying to get closer to God, and when everything is dark, when the balloons seem like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to see the hope. I don't know if it's ever going to really rise, if it's ever going to be bright. I don't know. It feels like somebody's just slapping my balloon around here. This feels awful. And yet, the Bible seems to say, and we sing, and the guy at the front says, God is good all the time. What on earth is going on? When you're in your darkest moment, there's a couple of ways we tend to respond. We either deny our problems and pretend that everything is good. I cannot face this. I will not face this. Let's just pretend this isn't even real. And we call it faith, but sometimes it crosses over into denial. So sometimes we just say, I'm not going there. And the other thing we do is sometimes we just leave. We leave our faith. We say, if that's the kind of God that we serve, then I want nothing to do with that God. And so most people, even most believers, will respond in one of two ways. They will say, this isn't real. This isn't really happening. God is too good. This cannot happen. It is not happening. I shall never think of it again. Or, if that's the kind of God we serve, I'll have nothing to do with him. But Habakkuk dealt with it differently. He reveals a third way. And while doing the third way, God wants you to know 5 things. And I can't possibly tell you those 5 things today. Let us stand together. We're out of time, folks. In Chatham and in Bathurst, you go ahead and stand with us here in Newcastle as well. Father God, we are in a tough spot. We're frustrated at the darkness all around us. We really do believe, God, that you are good, but sometimes it's hard to see. It's hard to see through the darkness. God, sometimes it's hard to see the hope that should be rising up. Sometimes it's hard to see the light of your love. It just doesn't all add up. And so, God, I pray that this week we would do what Habakkuk did, that we would embrace and that we would wrestle, and that next week as we gather together again, God, that we would see not only what Habakkuk did, but the 5 things you want us to know so that we can find light in these seasons of darkness. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.